All right, hey, what's up everybody? Today we're gonna make a quick Neapolitan style dough. Now, Neapolitan dough in general is very, very simple. It's salt, it's water, and it's flour. Of course, you need to have yeast as well. So it's 4 ingredients total if you factor in the yeast as well. So I've already got my dry ingredients in here, our salt and our flour. We've got 500 grams of flour here and 10 grams of salt. I know that sounds like a lot, but it'll be worth it. This will actually make a few pizzas as well. So first, I've already got my dry ingredients in here, but first things first, I want to get my warm water. So I have 95 grams of warm water here. I'm gonna pour in my yeast right here. I also have 10 grams of yeast, which is also a lot of yeast. It is a lot of yeast, and I'm doing that because I'm actually gonna be making this pizza for dinner tonight as well. So with that yeast mixture, what we're gonna do is we're just gonna agitate it a little bit to kick it off from get started. And so you can add a little sugar to it as well. I did, just to help give the yeast something to eat and feed on as it activates. The sugar in there is to help kind of just give it some food to go off of. So this should bloom really, really fast. I'm looking for a nice foamy mixture here. So we're gonna give that about 10 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes, and we'll be right back. Okay, so now our yeast is nice and frothy. You can tell that it's activated and it's good to go. It's been about 5 minutes. Again, I have all my dry ingredients here. We have 500 grams of 00 flour. We have 10 grams of salt in this. So what we're gonna do first is I'm gonna just pop this in here. Get that on there. First thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put my water in here. This is 225 grams of cold water. I'm gonna just pour this right in on top, but I'm gonna leave a bunch in there. And then I'm gonna go ahead and get this started. Bring this up. And then I'm gonna pour my yeast mixture right in. And the reason why I left some in here is I'm gonna make sure I get all of that yeast. Swish that around and then pour that in. In total, we have about 320 grams of water for 500 grams of flour. So I'm gonna let this go until it all just incorporates, and we'll be right back. This is about a minute in to the mixing. You need to go ahead and just scrape down the sides, but I don't think I'll actually need to here. Looking pretty good. Just want to make sure it's all incorporated. All right, we're gonna stop it right there. It's still looking a little bit shaggy, and that's okay, because I'm gonna do the rest by hand. I just wanna make sure it's all nicely incorporated. So you can kind of see here, it's looking pretty good. It's a little bit wet in some parts, but shaggy in others. So once I incorporate all of that, it will be perfect. So go ahead and just make sure that you get all your flour incorporated, because that will make a difference in terms of the consistency of the dough and the wetness of the dough. All right, and when you're ready, just go ahead and plop it down on there. I'm gonna make sure I have every little bit out within reason. You don't have to scrape it too hard. Okay, and just set that aside. All right, so now I have my dough to start. Now, the big thing here is I obviously didn't let this go for very long, and that's because we're actually gonna knead this by hand a little bit. I believe that Neapolitan dough deserves a little bit of a handheld touch, and while this looks shaggy right now, it will incorporate very nicely into a very nice, smooth, silky, fluffy dough. And so we're gonna knead this for about 5 to 10 minutes, depending on how much we need, and get right back to it. All right, it's feeling pretty good now. Want to be sure not to overwork it too much, otherwise you'll never be able to stretch the dough effectively. All right, I think we're at a pretty good spot here to stop. I don't intend it to be perfect, but I'm gonna let it rest now for a minute or so and let it do its thing. I'm gonna put a damp towel over it first. All right, so letting it rest just means put a nice, clean, damp towel right over top. We're gonna let it rest for about 15, 20 minutes. Again, there's a lot of yeast in there, so I'm not too worried about it proofing large. 5-10 minutes, I'm gonna come back and then I'm gonna actually separate this into dough balls that I'm gonna use to serve for pizza tonight. All right, it's rested for about 8 minutes or so now. We're gonna go ahead and set this aside. Next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take this, we're gonna roll it into a nice little ball. I'm gonna separate it into 3 dough balls. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my dough, I'm gonna scoop it up. Again, this is a pretty wet dough. It's about 63 or so, 62% hydration. I'm gonna take my dough and I'm just gonna form it into a nice little ball. We're gonna do that like this. Little dough scraper always helps with this process, especially for a wet dough. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna divide this into 3 different dough balls at about 273 grams each. I'm going for about 9.5 to 10 ounces per dough ball. The reason being is that makes about a 9, 10, 11 inch pizza, depending. And so that's plenty big for me. So I'm gonna try to cut this into thirds to the best of my ability. That's really bad. We'll see. But my target weight is about 273 grams. Ooh, 277, I'll take it. I will take it. And then I'm gonna put that into a nice little ball. Just like that. You can even kind of squeeze it right at the bottom. Just make sure it's nice and tight. Now we have a nice little pillowy ball. And since I think this will be one of the bigger ones, I'm gonna put this in the slightly bigger ball, or bowl. And then we have this one, which I think might be a little too small. Yeah, that's way off. $250. $276. Okay, and that leaves this one as what? $276. Okay, well, not bad. That's 3 almost identical size dough balls. $277, $276, and $276. So that should give me some solid 9.5, 10 inch pizzas, which I think is going to be plenty big. And that's pretty much all you have it. If you wanted to stop here and just put these in the refrigerator to proof for, I don't know, up to 3 or 4 days, then that's perfect. If not, you can let these sit out at room temperature like I'm gonna do for a few hours, let them rise quite a bit. I can actually see them actively growing because there's so much yeast in them. And then I'll use them later for dinner tonight. So in about 4 or 5 hours, they'll proof, and then I'll be able to use those pizzas for tonight. Of course, it's not gonna be as good as if you let it proof overnight, 24, 48 hours, but it'll at least be a quick dinner fix for tonight. Thanks for watching, and if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments section down below. Of course, like and subscribe and all of that, and I'll see you at the next one.